Good morning. It's good to be here and to be with you. I'm Andy Nelson, and I'm a member of the UU Fellowship of Clemson's Worship Associate Team. Each week, this community comes together to participate in worship, music, and reflection. This is where we seek to have our hearts opened and our imaginations fired. This is the place that reminds us we're deeply connected to one another and to all living things. Following the service at 11:30 a.m., we'll meet for social connection and the sharing of joys and concerns in our Zoom meeting. Please join us if you can. And if this is your first time this morning, welcome. We are a religious community grounded in the heritage and principles of Unitarian Universalism. All are welcome, regardless of religious background, political persuasion, ethnicity, age, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. If you find yourself with questions about truth and meaning, you've found kindred spirits here. If you'd like more information about this fellowship, or Unitarian Universalism in general, please see information about us on our website, uufc.org. Also, our weekly newsletter will help keep you connected to our community for online social events, sharing of joys and concerns, and our collective efforts to support local justice work. If you're interested, please reach out to the office by the email on our website. Today, we welcome Reverend Erin J. Walter, a UU minister and musician based in Austin, Texas. Her pronouns are she, her, hers. Reverend Erin leads the group Parker Woodland, whose music you'll hear this morning, and plays bass in the queer rock band Butch County. A former YMCA director, she serves as a board member for the Texas UU Justice Ministry and as the affiliated community minister of Wildflower, a Unitarian Universalist church in Austin. You can find more about Reverend Erin's music and ministry at erinwalter.com. Welcome, Reverend Walter. Let us begin worship with these opening words. These are an excerpt of a piece called We Are Worthy by Elandria or E. Williams. E. served as co-moderator of the Unitarian Universalist Association from August 2017 to June 2020 and died this fall at age 41. I highly encourage you to look at Elandria Williams online and learn about their legacy. E. was an incomparable leader, joyous presence, and indomitable force in our Unitarian Universalist community and beyond. And we remember them with these powerful words. We are worthy, not because of what we produce, but because of who we are. We are divine bodies of light and darkness. You are not worthy because of what you offer, not because what is in your mind, not for the support you give others, not for what you give at all. We are worthy and are whole just because.
Hello, UU family. I'm going to sing a song with you called Shine on Me. It's an amazing spiritual that anybody can sing. And in these days when the things that we're dealing with, the feeling separate and all of that, and things seem so hard, this is one of those songs that you just throw your head back, put it in your medicine kit. All you have to do is ask. And here's how it goes. Shine on me, oh shine on me. Let the light from the lighthouse shine on me, oh shine on me, yes, shine on me. Let the light from the lighthouse. Shine on me, lift me up, oh, lift me up. Let the light from the lighthouse lift me up, oh, lift me up. Yes, lift me up. Let the light from the lighthouse lift me up. Oh, hold me close. Yes, hold me close. Let the light from the lighthouse hold me close. Yes, hold me close. Oh, hold me close. Let the light from the lighthouse, please, hold me close. Oh, shine on me, shine on me. Yes, shine on me. Let the light from the lighthouse shine on me. Oh, shine on me. Yes, shine on me. Let the light from the lighthouse shine on me. All you have to do is just ask. The light is always there. Always. Always. Oh, yeah.
Good morning. It is such a joy to be with you today, even virtually from my home in Austin, Texas. I come to you in the spirit of Wildflower Church, a Unitarian Universalist congregation in South Austin that I serve, and our mission is growing spiritually together, spreading love, justice, and joy. Today for the Chalice Lighting, I want to do what we do at Wildflower, which is we envision our hands as a flame. And so whether you have a chalice at home or not, would you join me in the spirit of lighting the flame within us all? These are our words of affirmation. We gather together in a spirit of love, with justice as our guide. This is our chosen covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth with freedom, and to care for one another. In our Time for All Ages today, I'd like to share a little piece of scripture that came into my life and my heart and gave me so much joy when I was studying to become a minister. And I take it from this version of the Bible. It's called the Poverty and Justice Bible. And I was told that Reverend Dr. William Barber, one of the great justice leaders in this country, uses this version because what it does is it highlights sections about poverty or justice. And I didn't highlight those. It comes this way. So if you're looking for pieces of scripture to think and learn about poverty and justice, which I know this congregation is surely invested in and has a heart for, I recommend this version. And I grew up Unitarian Universalist and didn't have a lot of exposure to biblical stories. And so this is something I'm catching up with gratitude. So this little bit that I'm going to share with you comes from the book of Exodus, which feminist scholar Carol Myers says is arguably the most important book of the Bible. In this book, the Israelites are traveling in the wilderness, both physically and spiritually, out of slavery, a long, long journey to the promised land. And for many people in this time, that may relate. We are experiencing a hard time as a nation, as a world, living in a pandemic, but also dealing with environmental devastation, racism, violence. And so as we relate to the hard time, I hope we'll also relate to this. Exodus chapter 15, verse 19 through 21. After the Israelites had walked safely through on dry ground, Miriam, the sister of Aaron, was a prophet. So she took her tambourine and led the other women out to play their tambourines and to dance. Then she sang to them. This brought so much joy into my heart. We have a female prophet. We have people on a very hard journey, and she still brought her tambourine, and they still found the spirit and the energy to dance and to sing. I heard Vice President-elect Kamala Harris refer to joy in her speech when the returns finally came in. And I am excited for us to center joy in a new chapter. And however you find joy in your life, I hope you will share it with others. So for me, a tambourine really is a tambourine. I love music, I love dance, and I'm using those things to get me through the struggle of this time. But what is your tambourine? What brings you joy? Maybe it's riding your bike. Maybe it's gardening. Maybe it's cooking, skateboarding. My kids got both bikes and skateboards during this time, and we're learning new joy practices. But I ask you to think about, what is your tambourine? And share that with others. Miriam doesn't just get out her tambourine and dance alone. She dances with the other women. And I can imagine that everyone had to join in. Thank you for listening. We enter now into a time of reflection, prayer, joys, and concerns. I've turned my 8-year-old son's left-handed desk into a space for the sacred today, reminding us as we see his stuffed owl among the stones and the flame, reminding us that we can make any space a sacred space with intention. We hold in our hearts and prayers all who are suffering, who feel in conflict or cut off, worried, anxious, or depressed. May all those who feel that way, may all of us who feel that way, also know the great love and comfort that surrounds us all. May we reach out to each other in care. The particular concerns of this community we lift up today. Meg Williamson, who shares sadness over letting go of faithful dog Odie on November 19th. Odie had been ailing for many months and had taken a sharp decline in recent weeks. Meg will miss her sweet personality. What a good dog. And is glad Odie got to participate in one last grounds work party on November 7th. We remember Odie with Meg. We pray for all with COVID-19, including Nancy and Bing Johnson's daughter, son-in-law, and grandson in Georgia. Nancy and Bing wish them all health and comfort as they heal, and so do we. May there be justice and joy, peace and love, great hope in all of our hearts. Amen, and blessed be.
Today's reading is Go to the Limits of Your Longing by Rainer Maria Rilke. God speaks to each of us as he makes us, then walks with us silently out of the night. These are the words we dimly hear. You sent out beyond your recall. Go to the limits of your longing. Embody me. Flare up like a flame and make big shadows I can move in. Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. Don't let yourself lose me. Nearby is the country they call life. You will know it by its seriousness. Give me your hand.
There's a feeling I can't describe what it is to be alive, and no matter how I try, it escapes me. Heart set afire, glowing, crackling wild. It stops me in my tracks, yeah, it wakes me, and I say, so good on both sides of the street. All the facts were still the same, but just a whole lot less like shame. And I fell in love with the rough spots on my face and feet. Oh, rise and shine. We only got today to be alive.
some days I wake up with that feeling of gratitude, with that aliveness that I try to describe in that song, Wake Me Up, that I wrote a couple years ago. But this year and this pandemic, some mornings I don't wake up feeling that way. I want to scream or cry instead. I wake up in the middle of the night, in the darkness, struggling, just giving negative thoughts time to run through my mind, as I like to tell my friends. I start to feel like I've used all of my, quote, weep in front of you cards, as I call them, on a certain group of trusted friends and family. And so this morning I want to start by asking that we promise each other this, as people of faith, as Unitarian Universalists trying to build and strengthen and maintain community during a time of virtual connection. Please let's promise each other that at church you cannot run out of weep in front of you cards, or rage in front of you, or cards that say I'm tired of hurting alone. Today we're talking about holding on in hard times, having hope, knowing that no feeling is final. Now, I've heard people say that healing is a spiral, and I really love that image. But for me, also, I've discovered lately that grieving can be a spiral. Just when I feel like I've made peace with the way things are right now, with the limits on connection and seeing folks, with the many pandemics of the world and how small our efforts may be to chip away at racism, at systemic violence, at environmental struggles. Just when I think I've made peace with the pace of this work and with being at home, and then the grief will hit me all over again at how much we've lost or how deep the struggle is. First of all, I want to acknowledge that many of us are struggling financially during this time, or struggling with purpose because we've lost jobs or employment, activities that used to give our life joy and meaning, as well as put food on the table. For me, a few months ago, my job as a director and a chaplain for the YMCA of Austin was eliminated, along with about half of the full-time jobs and a huge percentage of the part-time jobs at that institution. And I miss my community so much. And I'm making lemonade out of lemons by getting to spend a lot of time on virtual tour in my ministry. And I'm so grateful for Silver Linings. And I want to share with any of you who may have been laid off, who may have lost hobbies and things that you used to do with people, communities. My heart is with you. You are not alone. It is hard. And I ask you to think about what is giving you hope and what is helping to get you through. And can you share those things with other people? We're going to talk a bit about that. When I get stuck in grief, or when I counsel people who are grieving or struggling, one of the things that I ask myself and I ask them is, what has helped you get through before? I know that my Unitarian Universalist faith is one of those things. I know that the pillars of our values, that every person has worth and dignity, and that we are all connected, are deeply reassuring to me in this time. It tells me that our dignity is not about what job we have. Our dignity is just in being who we are, that we are loved and sacred no matter what. So I won't let capitalism tell me what my worth is, and I won't let work or not work tell me what my worth is. So that's part of the first principle. And then just this interconnectedness, that whatever we can share, whatever we're going through, we're not alone. But also, in addition to my faith, I think about the experiences of my life. And I invite you to do the same. One of our sources as Unitarian Universalists is lived experience. We invite ourselves to trust our lived experience and to listen to the lived experiences of others. So the deepest grief that I had ever experienced prior to this pandemic was over the death of my father. I was a young adult, and he was a vibrant, vibrant person at age 55. When he had a cardiac event that no one was expecting, he was taking great care, and life is fragile and you just never know how much time you have. And so we had a few days where he was in a coma in the hospital, and we were hoping, but also making peace with what seemed inevitable. And so I want to share with you some of the grace that I experienced during that time, knowing that even in the hardest times, there's beauty, there's love, there's laughter and delight. So here's what I remember. I remember the way my stepmom invited my mom into the circle of holding hands in the hospital waiting room so that no one would be left out when we talked about whether we were ready to let him go. Despite conflicts and pain of the past, she invited her in. I remember my stepsister's aunt, who I didn't know very well, but who brought me new reef flip-flops as a small gesture in the waiting room. I remember her kneeling at my feet. And when you think about the spiritual implications of taking care of people's feet, Jesus washing the feet, she kneeled at my feet and gave me these flip-flops and said she'd noticed how much I loved the ones I had, and they looked worn out because I wore them so much. And something about that little sweetness, that kindness of noticing my favorite shoes, I'll never forget it. And I invite you to think about what you could be noticing about your loved ones and how you could lift that up in delight for them. How you could show people you love that you're paying attention. I remember the friends who sat with me, and especially the man who used to change my father's truck's oil about an hour out of town in Marble Falls. This man drove an hour to see us in the waiting room in Austin, was emotional about my father's condition, and I thought, I want to live that kind of life where I'm so kind that the person who changes my oil would travel to tell my family what he felt about me, and where my roots are deep enough that I might be on a first name basis with the workers in my community who I see maybe only every few months. How beautiful a life that would be. I remember crying and being held in love by people in the hospital chapel. It didn't matter that I didn't know them or their theology. Their love and their faith got me through. I'll never forget it. And last but not least, I remember hoping that the country music and fishing stories and barbecue smells, all that we brought into my father's hospital room, would bring him back to life. They didn't, but they still bring life to me. Those smells, those sounds, those memories, they bring him back to me. And this is the church that I want for us too, where music and food and memory connect and unite us and get us through even the greatest loss, where we learn each other's names and we show up for each other, where we pay attention to the things that bring each other joy, and then we lift those joyful things up when they're needed. Especially like my stepmom did for my mom, I want us to be a church that reaches across and invites people in, that heals conflict, that understands that perhaps we won't even fully heal certain wounds. There will always be scars, and that we can move forward together still. That love and community and connection is higher even than those scars. I give thanks for those memories of how there's beauty and wonder even in grief, and I remember that now for this time. You heard the powerful poetry of Rainer Maria Rilke and Go to the Limits of Your Longing. A friend sent me that poem because of those lines, just keep going, no feeling is final. They knew that I needed that message a few months ago when my grief was the deepest. But what really, really, really means the world to me is that first half that talks about God sending us out to our limits. Don't you feel like we've been sent to our limits lately? I do. And if you feel that way, you're not alone. This part where the divine says, embody me, flare up like a flame and make big shadows that I can move in. That, when I wake in the night and I just feel surrounded in darkness or sadness, I remember that message. Where would the stars be without a dark sky? Blackness is beautiful, darkness is beautiful, and the divine moves in those big shadows. So if this pandemic is a time of great reimagining, but also a feeling for some of us of darkness, we are struggling with our mental health, many in our communities, especially those of us who are most isolated. Remember that the divine is with you, however you define her, them. Whether it's God, whether it's nature, whether it's your ground of being, your still small voice, your best self, all of that is with you in those shadows. Take heart. No feeling is final. And I love that it says, embody me. One of the practices that gets me through is dance. I teach a dance class, and you'll get a follow-up from this service where I invite you to be part of it on Zoom. Another silver lining is we can dance together across the miles during this time. We are learning how to give access to joy, to justice making, to being a part of our activism and our civic life in a way that is truly accessible to all through Zoom and other platforms. And so dancing is one of those things. So embody me. When the divine says embody me, dance. Be out there or in here, wherever you may be, moving. Find ways for your spirit to move. I'm curious what your spiritual practices are, what things are getting you through, and I hope that you're sharing them with your neighbors. Another piece of this access is that people need community right now, and your community is available to everyone through the online platform. You can be sending invitations to your friends and family all around the world. People need it. And the truth of the matter is Unitarian Universalism has a life-saving message for people. That you are loved no matter what, that we are all connected, that we are seeking meaning and truth together, and that doesn't mean we have to agree, but that we can be on this journey together. People need that. So I urge you to reach out and invite and share, knowing that you might be the one who helps someone hold on during hard times. I want to give you a little snippet from this book, Animal, Vegetable, Miracle, and don't mind if it's backwards. Technology, has its challenges as well. Animal, Vegetable, Miracle by Barbara Kingsolver is a book I was reading during another very difficult time in my life. I had a 6-month-old baby, my first child. I'm now in her bedroom. She's 11. Her room has the best backdrops and the best Wi-Fi in the house, so it's also church. But so when she was 6 months old, I was living in Chicago, and I had a bicycle accident. I found myself on the side of the road, hurting, stunned, and unsure whether I should call a cab home, whether I should call a cab to work, eventually realizing I should probably call a cab to the hospital. But I relate to that stunned version of myself on the street corner these days. Where are we going from here? Do we go back? Do we go forward? Do we go someplace new? I think that's a big question for this time, and I hope you're grappling with what that someplace new might be and how we might bring back what we love from life before the pandemic, but integrate it into a greater vision for what's next. But so when I finally made it to the hospital, I found out I needed surgery, I had a broken leg, and I would need rehab. We had no family, no car. We were on a second-story walk-up. It was eventually January when I was doing my PT, and I couldn't be home alone with my baby. So one thing I want you to know is that my church took care of us. They helped my partner and me. They brought meals. They took me to doctor's appointments. I am still in loving relationship with many of these folks, particularly from small group ministry at Second Unitarian in Chicago. during that time 10 years ago. And so that is something I want you to take heart about. If you are struggling, what can we do in this time? What matters? The answer is that taking care of each other matters, and that church is an incredible opportunity to take care of each other. So I always give thanks for the way that those folks did that. But so while I was lying on my couch with a broken leg and a fussy baby and reading this book, it's about Barbara Kingsolver and her family farming and taking all of their food from their land for a year and not, and only living off that. And again, I relate to that now. Certainly I'm not farming everything, but I have a garden for the first time in my life because we have time, and I'm taking all of my food from very close to home while we are sheltering in place. And so, of course, I'm not able to do anything, but I'm reading and living vicariously through Barbara as she farms and farms and farms with her husband and 2 daughters. And then we get to page 79. Out of the blue, we have this sentence. It was Tuesday, only slightly nicer weather, and Stephen headed out again. I was mending a broken leg that spring and could not navigate the steep, slick mountainside, so I was consigned to the wifely role of waiting for Man the Hunter to return. I tell you, I was flabbergasted when I read that sentence. She had made it 79 pages without even mentioning a broken leg in a book about farming, this thing that was ruining and affecting my whole existence was one sentence. Then she doesn't mention it again, except one more time at the end where she talks about her kids were making Thanksgiving dinner and she hoped that they'd learn to be more self-sufficient since she couldn't do it because of her broken leg. I have clung to this, friends, in the 10 years since, and here's what I glean from it. Remember, when things are hard, on a day, on a week, on a month, on a year, when it feels like it will be this hard forever, someday you will be able to tell the story of this time, and you can choose to make that thing 1 sentence, 2 sentences in the book of your year, in the book of your life. You can choose how you're going to frame this. We can choose how we're going to tell this story of this time. And let me be clear, that does not mean that I think that the COVID-19 pandemic, to which we have lost hundreds of thousands of people in this country, millions in the world, it does not mean that that is a 1 sentence thing, nor is the movement for Black lives, the struggle around racial equity and institutional violence, nor the pandemic of destruction to the earth. These are all things that deserve way more than a sentence or 2. But what I'm saying is that we, through our actions, through our work, through our love, through our community building, we can determine how this story is going to be written. And we have agency in the things that we are doing and the love that we are giving. So please remember that. From Rilke, no feeling is final. And from the book Animal Vegetable Miracle, this could be 1 sentence, whatever you're struggling with in the year, in the book of your life. I appreciate getting this time with you. I'm so thankful to know that you're out there building community, interconnected to the rest of us all over the world who are doing the same. And I wish you health, peace, love, justice, and that you may be surrounded in the knowing that we are getting through this time together.
My life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, the far off hymn that hails a new
storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love prevails in heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing?
As we come to the end of our worship service today, we also arrive at the beginning of our ministry for the week ahead. We hope that this morning has been meaningful for you and that you'll leave here with a sense of connection and possibility. I do have one announcement to share from Mel Afragola. Steve and I are deeply saddened to announce that we have now lost yet another friend to COVID. Bruce Duncan was only 58 years old. He was a member of our extended South Florida music family and in good health when he was struck with this virus almost 3 months ago. He ended up on a ventilator for 2 months, was weaned off, and seemed to be on the way back to us right before he passed on November 4th. Go in peace, our friend. We have 25 years of memories to hold on to. Now our guest minister, Reverend Erin Walter, will extinguish our chalice and share the closing words.
Will you join me in extinguishing the chalice together, even as we know we carry this flame in our hearts at all times? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. As we break apart our hands from our chalice, will you envision reaching out for this benediction? If you have someone sitting with you and you can connect physically, beautiful. And if not, please imagine whom you might connect with if you were in the pews together. Let your spirit soar to connect with those folks. Will you breathe with me? Spirit of life and love, holy of many names, beyond our knowing. Oh, are we grateful for this day? Thank you for this community. Thank you for the gift of music. Our lives do flow on in endless song. We cling to that rock. How can we keep from singing? May we be the communities that heal, that care, that bring justice forward in new ways in this time, remembering always that no feeling is final and that we are in this together. Amen, and blessed be.